What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Last time, we covered the Cell games in this scenario, and how our heroes ended up cheating a bit to win. Through a combined effort, Cell was defeated. A big part of it due to attacks from Piccolo and Tenshinhan, showing off some of the amazing power that they had in this scenario. And naturally, that means we'll be heading into the Buu Saga next. For this video, let's set a like goal of 2,500 likes, and once we hit that, I'll continue with another part to this series. Anyways, let's pick up from here. Immediately after the Cell Saga, some things begin changing. Trunks is of course born, and as for Goten, he is older here, but he's still pretty young to start training right now. But Gohan keeps this in mind. He knows future Goten wanted him to train this Goten as well. So along with Gohan keeping up his own training, he knows that once Goten's old enough, he's gonna join. And as for the humans, we see some changes as well. Tenshinhan returns to his normal training, as Krillin, Yamcha, and Roshi watch in awe. Yamcha especially wants to start keeping up with everyone. He's surprised the other two get ahead so quickly, so he's actually more motivated in the scenario. And of course we briefly touched on Roshi before. Naturally he is lagging behind due to his age, and because he's having kind of a late start. But he has more than enough time on his hands, so he's begun training a lot more as well, and he has seen some considerable growth. As for Piccolo, he ends up returning to King Kai, ready to train some more with Kaioken, while everyone else on Earth goes back to their normal lives and training. Oh yeah, and there's a little bit of a loose end that Piccolo wants to tie up. Well, Earth needs Dragon Balls now, so he has King Kai contact Namek, and as a gift, they send a new Namekian over. And just for simplicity and because it's the most sensible choice, it's still Dende, who ends up making a new upgraded version of Earth's Dragon Balls. Thankfully they're able to restore the damage done by Cell and revive those who he killed. Although, they specify the wish to revive only the good people. And sadly, the androids do not get revived here. It's not like the original story where they had a reason to revive the androids anyways. Here, there's no real sympathy for them. And before we fully move on to the Buu Saga, there's one thing that I forgot to address in the last part. During the Cell games, there was a contestant that I left out, that being Mr. Satan. Pretty much like normal, he tried his hand against Cell, but failed miserably, pretty much getting defeated in the same way where he gets slammed into a cliff. This did badly injure him, but luckily, he was able to survive somehow, and he was healed not long after. But after this near-death experience, he began to notice something. Of course, he's happy that he's being hailed as a world hero, but more interestingly to him, he begins noticing his strength is somehow more potent. Like for example, he tries to make a cup of coffee in the morning, but without knowing his own strength, he breaks the mug, and he spills hot coffee on probably the worst area you could spill hot coffee on. Lucky for him, he already has a kid. The burn itself is pretty bad and that's what he focuses on first, but afterwards, he begins thinking, how did that mug break? He was holding it pretty gently. And this starts to become a daily occurrence with other things. He pulls the doorknob off his door. He presses a button on the TV remote and it shatters. He just can't stop breaking things. He was somehow gifted some sort of new strength, but he can't figure out why. As a test, he tries to use the cinder blocks again, seeing if he could still break through them somehow. And this time, he breaks through all of them. In fact, he's barely even trying now. Before he couldn't break through all of them and he had to use all his might. And now, he's doing it pretty casually. At least relatively casually when compared to before. He begins thinking. He's heard stories of this around the world. Sometimes, when people get close to death, they recover much stronger, but there's never been many cases like him where a powerful, expert martial artist face a near supernatural death. Of course, humans getting Zenkais in this scenario doesn't just apply to the Z fighters, no, it applies to every human on Earth. But the thing is, the cases of these are so rare that they're never even really noted. And it only causes for a considerable increase in strength when the person was already strong to begin with, which is why there's so few accounts of it, and they're mostly from martial artists. Mr. Satan keeps this in mind over the 7 years, and decides to study up on some other aspects of fighting. Maybe this will give him some answers. I mean, he is the champ after all, and he needs to defend this strength. And it would be pretty beneficial for his daughter too. Fast forward 7 years or so. Gohan has kept up with his training like I mentioned. His natural potential allowed him to actually close the gap in power with everyone, and as you could probably tell, that means he comes out on top. As for him and the other Saiyans, they end up finding Super Saiyan 2, and surprisingly, both Goten and Trunks have it as well. Gohan has kept his promise and made sure that Goten was starting to train, and Goten's pretty amazed to hear the stories about his future self. It actually helps inspire and motivate him a lot, and this eventually rubs off on Trunks too. He's weaker than Goten, and the weakest Saiyan overall, but the two of them are actually doing way more than they did normally. As for Goku, Vegeta, and Nappa, they're pretty much even in terms of strength by now. I would say placing them around where Super Saiyan 2 Goku was during the Buu Saga is fair, if not slightly above that, while Gohan's actually noticeably above that, not by a huge amount, but still, a noticeable amount. That's what happens when Hybrid Saiyan is trained constantly. But, of course, Gohan realizes that with great power comes great responsibility. He learned that from some superhero, some spider guy or whatever his name is. And it resonates with him. He's gonna become the great Saiyan, and Gohan's actually able to maintain this identity. He becomes somewhat of a superhero, trying to help out the city, but it seems there's another hero there as well, one named Videl. Her skills are pretty impressive, but Gohan could tell it's nothing like his. The bad part about it though is, it seems like she's kinda stalking him. Not in like a bad stalking way, like she's just trying to find out who the great Saiyan is. But still, she's a stalker. And she's Gohan's classmate. Gohan's a bit concerned that he might be caught, but he keeps his cool. He can tell she's trying to find out his identity, so he's able to keep his distance most of the time. But this can't really last for long, as she gets closer and closer to finding out who he really is. One day, the two find themselves at a crime, both called there to prevent it. Gohan gets there first and he's able to stop it pretty quickly, but as he tries to rush out of there, he's then cornered by Videl. You know what? Simple enough. They're in the middle of the city, so Gohan takes the easiest escape. He jumps up, going right to the top of a skyscraper right behind him. Gohan lands on the roof and breathes a sigh of relief. There's no way she'll get to him up here. Now he could just fly back to school and quickly change into his normal clothes. As he's about to fly away, he then hears footsteps behind him as someone lands. He looks on in shock as he sees Videl just casually jumped up top there too, much to the surprise of Gohan and everyone else below in the street. No one can see them up there, but Videl tries to go and take Gohan's helmet off, so his identity is still at risk. He's heavily suppressed, but she's somehow able to keep up with his speed. He keeps dodging, but she keeps swinging, knowing that he's hiding something. Gohan's actually impressed. She's incredibly fast for a normal human, and how could she jump so high? Gohan dodges one of her attacks, as she keeps speeding up the swipes, and this causes her to trip, then falling off the top of the building. Gohan panics, immediately jumping off and trying to go fly down and help her, as she falls down into the alleyway below. But then, to his surprise, she flies back up. Thankfully, no one was watching or could see them, because on her ascent, she was able to pull off Gohan's helmet. Caught up in all of it, Gohan is just shocked if anything. He didn't know she was this strong, or even knew that she knew how to use ki. The two arrive back on the top of the skyscraper. She suspected it was Gohan but wasn't really sure. Gohan's impressed and actually asks her what kind of training she did. She says she is Mr. Satan's daughter after all. But she lets him in on a little secret saying that she's actually stronger than Mr. Satan. Gohan vaguely remembers him from the Cell games. Is he actually strong? He didn't seem like it back then. Even though Videl does know ki and she's pretty strong, she still does know that Gohan's way out of her league in terms of strength. And maybe it would be beneficial if they trained a bit. Not only does she want a better mastery over ki, but she could probably learn some other things from him. He definitely seems like a way better fighter. She joins Gohan and Goten in their training, with Goku and Chi-Chi actually surprised to see this. Goku chuckles, cool, Gohan got a girlfriend, while Chi-Chi doesn't really take too kindly to Videl, just like normal. Maybe she should train with Goku too. It seems like Gohan and Videl are having fun. Maybe they would. She keeps that thought. But anywho, Mr. Satan eventually catches wind of this too, before the tournament even happens. He reminds Videl she can only date someone who's stronger than him, and embarrassed she clarifies that they're not really dating yet. But Mr. Satan doesn't care. He wants to fight Gohan regardless. So he proposes a challenge to Gohan. First, he tells him to enlist in the tournament, but also, he wants a full-on fight between the two of them. This only serves to anger Chi-Chi even more. She actually takes offense to this, and agrees. Gohan should fight him, put him in his place even. Goku just watches nervously. He already knows what the result of this fight will be, so it's settled. If Gohan beats Mr. Satan, he could date Videl, even though they're technically not really dating right now. Videl's just completely embarrassed and so is Gohan, but he has no choice but to accept, so the two prepare for their fight. And after some time, and seeing Goku, Mr. Satan then realizes, the Cell games, that's where he recognizes those two from. He vaguely remembers that they were there, but they didn't really do too much against Cell. It was more so some green guy and some guy with 3 eyes. Maybe they're kind of the weaklings of the group, so he's not too scared. With Gohan heavily suppressed, the two begin their fight. And to Gohan's surprise, he attacks Mr. Satan and is instantly caught off guard. Mr. Satan vanishes behind Gohan, delivering a kick as Gohan quickly is able to block it. Mr. Satan actually has some strength now. He's no poser. Gohan's not fully serious, but he is a bit surprised still, and the two continue fighting some more. Mr. Satan then shows off. He can fly and use Ki Blast. Maybe this'll scare Gohan, and it's not really surprising to him. He already saw Videl do it, and I mean, he can do it too. He could since he was like 4 years old. But while it's not surprising to Gohan, it's probably surprising to you guys. As you could probably tell, Mr. Satan studied up during the 7 years. He wanted to learn why he got so strong, and he inadvertently ended up learning about Ki rather than Zenkais. Of course, none of the humans really know about this, not even the Z Fighters. The Saiyans of course know about it for themselves, but there's barely any research on it for human. But as for Ki though, there is a lot that he could have learned. He then flies up, launching a dynamite kick at Gohan, rapidly ascending down from the sky. Goten and Chi-Chi cheer on Gohan as Videl shields her eyes, with Goku just standing there scratching his head. This guy seemed like kind of a schmuck. He didn't realize he actually knew how to use Ki. And isn't this kind of weird? He's fighting his girlfriend's dad. Maybe this is normal for all he knows. As Mr. Satan descends from the sky, his kick collides with Gohan's face directly. With his boot in Gohan's face, Gohan stumbles back a little as Mr. Satan grins. But then, his smile fades as Gohan slowly turns towards him, the boot still implanted in his cheek. That was fun. Gohan even laughs. Mr. Satan is scared. What? How strong is this guy? It has to be some sort of fluke. But he knows it isn't. He's studied up on ki now, and he's not going to say this is some magic trick. He knows what it is. Gohan just outmatches him. He admits defeat like a true martial artist, and allows the two to date. If anything, everyone's more so surprised at his strength, especially Goku. Of course his ego is a bit big, but Mr. Satan still actually seems like a good guy, and Goku decides to direct him towards Master Roshi. He's amazed that Mr. Satan learned all this stuff on his own, so maybe Master Roshi could teach him a few things alongside Krillin and Yamcha. The world champ is actually surprised to hear this, and accepts it. He still retains some of that ego, but he is a bit more humble here. He does want to improve himself and his strength after all. Some time passes and we eventually get to the World Tournament. A lot of the roster is pretty much the same. Of course Android 18 isn't there, and some of the other contestants don't get in, with Nappa, Tenshinhan, and Yamcha taking their place. And you know what? Even Chaozu joins. In his base he might not be as strong as everyone else, but if you remember from a few parts ago, when Piccolo died in the Saiyan saga, Chaozu did as well. He didn't get the same experience with King Kai that Piccolo did, but what Chaozu lacks in his base strength, he makes up for in his technique, because he actually does know the Kaioken. I feel bad for the dude. I decided to throw him a bone here. He doesn't know it at extreme levels like Piccolo does, where he could do times 100 or 200. But still, lower levels of Kaioken help him keep up with the other humans, which he definitely needs considering his main training partner is Tenshinhan, who is the strongest human. And speaking of him, Tenshinhan is up first against Krillin. It makes for a pretty good fight, but of course, Krillin is the one to lose this. Piccolo is obviously here too, now back from King Kai's. And just like normal, he's placed up against Shin, and he knows all too well who this guy is. Not just from his prior knowledge, but from what he learned from King Kai. And Shin does know who Piccolo is too, and telepathically he communicates, "Don't act suspicious." So the two have a fight with Piccolo clearly holding back, as Shin defeats him and wins. He didn't forfeit this time because he didn't want it to look suspicious, and this is good because he doesn't blow Shin's cover yet. And next up we have Videl versus Spopovich. Videl actually isn't beaten by Spopovich this time. It actually goes much different. Spopovich is a bit stronger than his normal self, but Videl is way stronger than she ever was. She's able to casually jump around and fly, avoiding all of Spopovich's attacks as Mr. Satan cheers her on. Here and there, she's able to land some good kicks and punches, actually dealing some decent damage to him, but this guy seems kind of like a tank. He's gonna need more than that. So, she decides to try something out, something that she learned from Gohan. As she jumps around avoiding Spopovich's attacks, she cups her hand. She channels some ki through them and starts charging a ball. She throws her hands out as she shouts Kamehameha, surprising everyone as this knocks Spopovich out of the ring. Yup, she actually knows the Kamehameha here. Videl's gonna get a lot more use in this what if than she did normally, so make sure to keep an eye on her. Spopovich stands up, and out of anger, he yells Yamu to come now. Yamu isn't entirely sure about this but goes ahead anyways. As Videl celebrates, she's suddenly attacked by Yamu, even surprising Shin and Kibito. They end up draining all of her energy, but it's really not too much compared to the other fighters there. They just decided she looks strong, so maybe that's a good choice. And it was partially out of anger on Spopovich's part, screwing up their plan as they try to rocket off to Babidi. But mid-air, they're immediately stopped by two people, Mr. Satan and an enraged Gohan. Mr. Satan kicks the device away as it shatters on the ground, and the two attack Spopovich and Yamu, preventing them from leaving. As for Shin, Kibito, and by extension Piccolo, they're all kind of panicking. This isn't what they had planned. What can they actually do about this? Kibito goes to heal Videl at least, giving her a Zenkai considering that she nearly died here. She's amazed. Why does she feel so much stronger than before? Not only was she healed, but her strength drastically increased, and she is of course worried about that attack that she just faced. She has so many questions but there's so little time. As for Spopovich and Yamu, Gohan and Mr. Saiyan easily defeat them, mostly due to Gohan, as they both fall to the ground. The two servants try to stand up again, but everyone in the arena gasps as someone teleports in. Enclosed in a bubble, Deborah has been teleported to the arena. To distract the fighters, he launches a blast towards the stands, as Goku, Tenshinhan, Nappa, and Vegeta are able to jump up and stop it quickly. And it was a pretty great distraction, because amidst all the chaos, he was able to find a suitable target. He spits 3 times, with spit landing on Spopovich, Yamu, and Gohan. If you want something done right, you might as well do it yourself. So, he brings these 3 back to Babidi directly. As the 2 servants will face their punishment, Gohan will become a battery. Mr. Satan watches in horror as Deborah takes Gohan and then is teleported away instantly. Goku quickly tries to intervene, but he's too late. Shin curses. Now, they're in trouble because they can't follow Spopovich and Yamu, and they can't sense anyone's energy. They really screwed up bad, didn't they? A little bit frustrated, Piccolo then decides to blow their cover, and he says, with all due respect, it was a pretty stupid plan of theirs. And the best option now is to reveal who they truly are. The two Kais and Piccolo try and catch everyone up to speed, and everyone tries to devise a plan. Shin decides the best option now is to spread out and search around, as the fighters split into small but strong groups. Once the ship is found, Shin will teleport to everyone and bring them there. Mr. Satan and Videl will join as well, since the tournament was halted anyways after what just happened. Goten and Trunks will even come along and search, but once they start fighting, they may need to leave. It's going to be a little bit out of their league. Same for Mr. Satan and Videl, but they at least want to do what they can to help. The massive search crew fans out, aiming to find Babidi's ship and to retrieve Gohan. Meanwhile, at the ship, Dabura arrives. Babidi is a little bit disappointed and punishes Spopovich and Yamu, telling Dabura to unfreeze them as he blows them up. But he commends Dabura for finding Gohan, and Dabura unfreezes Gohan's head, but leaving his body as stone. Gohan is conscious, but he's trapped in the stone, as Babidi grins. Gohan tries to power up and escape, but it's no use. He looks in horror as he sees. Babidi then pulls out the same device that they used on Videl. Dabura then creates a small opening in the stone, right on Gohan's side. Gohan desperately tries to escape as Babidi then stabs him with the device, brutally siphoning his energy as Gohan is slowly drained of everything, and as the rest of him is slowly unfrozen by Dabura. On the outside, everyone senses Gohan powering up and they're able to locate the ship right away, with Goku being the first one to descend downwards into the ship. He's the most concerned. He's actually panicking right now. Naturally, he can only think about the worst that's happening down there. Everyone tries to stop him, but Goku doesn't listen, as he bursts through the ship's floors, catching Pui Pui and Yakan off guard in the process. Babidi and Dabura look up, grinning as they hear the ship's floors breaking. A loud crash rings throughout the ship as Goku finally lands on the bottom floor, with everyone desperately trying to follow him as quickly as possible. But once they all arrive, everyone goes pale. Dabura is grinning as Boo's egg is being fueled, and on the ground nearby is a lifeless Gohan. Shin yells for Goku not to look, but it's too late. He was the one to arrive first, and he already saw what's happening. Goku just stands there, speechless, as everyone else looks on in horror, anticipating what will happen next. The ship is deathly silent as Goku stares ahead blankly, and ever so slightly, everything around begins shaking. This is where we'll leave off for now. So what did you guys think about this part? What do you think will happen in the next part due to the events here? Leave all your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, and let's try to hit that like goal so we can get another part of this series. If you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to get notified about any future parts of this What If, or any other videos that I upload on my channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.